How's everybody doing out there today? So I want to first of all apologize for the noise. I'm driving, but I wanted to make a video while it was fresh in my mind about a conversation that I had with my mother, who she is still a faithful witness and will never leave. But for probably one of the first times we kind of dove real deep into things that she also doesn't agree with. She normally would, just fight that conversation and say, oh no, it doesn't matter, we're not supposed to understand, things like that. But she calls me every week and tells me, hey, there's still time, come back to the hall, the end's gonna be here any day. And I always tell her the same thing, I'm not coming back to the hall, Mom. And she just kind of keeps it on the surface level. She doesn't dive too deep, and once in a while she'll ask some questions, and I don't really bring the topic up to her, because every time I do, she ends up becoming very upset, and because she yells at me sometimes, and I just don't want to upset her. My mom is in her 70s, and I just don't want her getting upset, so I know where it's going to lead. So I normally don't even bring up, any of the big doctrine issues that I have, unless she wants to talk about it, and she rarely does. But she called me and wanted to talk about it, and wanted to talk about some of the problems that I have with things, and for one of the first times, she admitted some things weren't right, and pretty big things. So I wanted to just talk about it, and I liken it to in the Matrix movie. If you're familiar with the Matrix movie, the guy who turned on him, I think his name was Cypher, who he saw what the real world was like, and being out there being chased around by Agent Smith and robots trying to kill you, and I mean, it was crazy. They living underneath the ground in a cave world, you know what I mean? It was crazy. So he decided, forget all this, plug me back in. Yeah, I know the world is a lie, I know what's really going on, but plug me back in. I'd rather live my regular life, with inside of this computer world, than be out there living in this craziness. And that's kind of what I liken witnesses to at this point, because where technology is, where information is, even faithful witnesses will stumble across some information that will bring some things to light to them, that even the ones that try their hardest to make excuses for their reasoning would tell them something's not making sense. So I kind of liken it to that. They are choosing to stay plugged in because it makes the most sense. It's the easiest thing to do. It gives them the most comfort in their life, and I completely understand that, honestly. I can even relate in the Matrix movie to Cypher doing it, because to him, why do I want to keep getting chased around? I could die at any minute. These robots can come unplug me, then I'm dead in both worlds. You know what I mean? Just plug me in, give me some money, leave me alone. So I understand that, and it's not a life for me, but I understand it. And so I understand my mom's point of view, and I understand other witnesses who come across videos and come across things, and then they go into the comment section and want to argue points that at the end of the day, they seem like intelligent people. They've got to understand their arguments don't make any sense, but they feel like they got to fight that fight just for the faith. But I feel like they're in that same book. They're saying, plug me in, leave me plugged in. Whatever the truth is, yeah, cool. I understand that's, what I believe in isn't real, but keep me plugged in, because I don't want no parts of that chaos that's going on out there. So kind of sorry about, going down a different road, but kind of getting back to our conversation. So, she really wanted to dive in a little bit, and I even gave her a little warning and said, come on, Mom, every time we talk about this, you get upset. I don't want to make you mad. I don't want to make you upset today. She said, no, I want to talk about it. And so we got to talking about some of the key things. So I knew the things to talk about with her As opposed to something I would talk about with the next witness. But some of the key things I talked about with her was the change in the understanding of who the faithful and discreet slave is. So all the time I was a witness, and everything she taught me, as far back, I don't remember when I first learned about faithful and discreet slave, but as far as I can remember back, the faithful and discreet slave was the 144,000, was the anointed ones, and they were to help rule in heaven with Jesus. And so I recently learned about this. I don't know when the change took place, but I just learned about this within the last probably few months to a year. But I guess at some point recently, the governing body has now said they are the faithful and discreet slave. Just them, just their little group. I don't know how many people are on the governing body, 6, 8, I don't really know. But now they are the only ones who are the governing body. So basically they have created another class. So it's the regular people who will come back on earth or live through Armageddon, according to the witnesses. Then there's the 144,000 who are now not the faithful and discreet slaves, so they are a separate class. And then there's another class, which is the governing body, who is the faithful and discreet slave. And so she understood that change, and she was aware and acknowledged, that doesn't make sense to me either. And I don't know where that came from. So we talked about that for a little bit, and I said, these men just decided that now they're special. Not the rest of the 144,000. Now they're special. They're on an elevated class, and they just sat around in a boardroom, and they made a decision that they're special now, and they've created a new class. And she agreed that didn't make sense. She agreed that she had some questions about that, so much so that she went to some elders and asked them questions about it. I guess when that came down. So that's some chink in the armor. She still isn't at peace with it. She still doesn't have an understanding as to why that took place. But as many do, she made excuses for them. And she said maybe, new light, of course, is the obvious thing witnesses always go to. But she also said maybe the governing body, since they are imperfect men, are making a mistake, which led to a whole nother, led to Pandora's box being opened up with our conversation. But maybe they're making a mistake by announcing they are a special class. And so, which led to me saying, well, if they're making a mistake there, where else have they made mistakes? And they've got people following things that are mistakes, if that's a mistake. And so we led to, it led into a conversation of lots of other things. The special service that I forget the exact name it is, but back in the day when witnesses could not do the civilian service in the military, when they were being drafted, so they were being thrown in jail. That was a big one, because then later they came out and said, okay, now you can do that service and you won't go to jail. And so they allowed people to do it. The blood substitutes that, people refused those because it's what they were told was the right thing to do and died. Now the society is saying it's a conscience matter, and you can take those things, and it's not going to exclude you from making it into the new system. So were those mistakes? Were they, quote unquote, new light? Were they just people making it up as they go? This is kind of how our conversation, the path that our conversation took, which leads to many other questions, and which leads to, what are you following? If it's just people sitting around making things up, and I've talked many times with her before about they only come up with new light when they have to. They don't come up with new light way ahead of time. It's when they have to. So the example I always use with her is, if I tell her it's going to rain tomorrow, and you can count on it 100% it's going to rain tomorrow, and then it doesn't rain tomorrow, so now I come to you tomorrow night and I say, hey, new light, It's not going to rain today in the day that just passed after all. You know, we have new information that now we don't know when it's going to rain. We just have to have faith that at some point it's going to rain. So new light, and God gave us more information. It's not going to rain today after all. I said that because I have to. It already didn't rain. So if I don't say anything about it, then you're just going to take me for a lie, as being a liar. So I've got to now come and give you some sort of BS explanation that I've got new light, new information, new radar, whatever it is BS. It's a nonsense explanation. And that's when the witnesses come. That's when the governing body comes with new light, when they have to. You know, we talked more about my whole time growing up, from the time as far back as I can remember. I was scared to death every night going to bed thinking that the world was going to end, you know, and that Armageddon was going to happen, and maybe some government soldiers were going to, you know, start arresting all witnesses, and we were going to go into hiding and be, you know, running from house to house trying to hide and not get thrown in prison. You know, as a kid, probably I don't know, 5 years old, the first memory I can remember of that, maybe a little younger, but worried that that's going to happen, and praying at night, you know, that that's going to happen, because for sure it was going to happen, you know, within the generation of the ones who were alive in 1914. Not just alive, but my understanding was they had to be conscious of what was happening. They couldn't be babies. So they had to, you know, be, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years old. They had to be old enough in 1914 to have an understanding of what was going on. So obviously, as that generation got older and older and older, the governing body sat around in their boardroom saying, uh-oh, what are we going to say now? I know they had actually early on given exact dates. I know, you know, all about that, exact years it was going to happen. Obviously, those things didn't happen. So they probably figured we'll be safe by just saying at some point before that generation passed away. When they made that announcement, you know, they probably had a good 30 years to go, 40 years to go, before that generation was gone. Well, now that generation is gone. And so now they had to sit around and say, you know what? Overlapping generations, new light, overlapping generations. So then my conversation with my mother got onto overlapping generations, which was her second point, her second chink in the armor, where she said, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That makes no sense at all. I've tried to understand it, I've read and talked to people about it, and the overlapping generations make zero sense. And I know what I taught you and your brother growing up all those years, and I know that was the understanding that we had. It was in writing. Now to just say overlapping generations doesn't make sense. So, which led to, well, where'd they get it from, Mom? Did they make a mistake again? Is it, you know, false new light? What happened? Where did they get it from? And she didn't know. So another thing, a major piece of doctrine that she agreed was false. Well, she didn't say false. You know, when I said, so you're saying it's false, she said no. But she agreed. She had a lot of questions about it, and she couldn't find a way to make it make sense with all of her teachings and understanding. So that was a big piece. And you know, I led right back to, so where'd they get it from? You know, where are they just making it up? Are they just sitting around and voting on what story they can get people to believe in? What's going to be more believable to stretch you on a little longer until they can come up with another new story? You know, and the conversation, this was the first time that when we started having these conversations, she just didn't get mad and, you know, start yelling at me, you need to come back to the hall. She actually, you know, we had a conversation about it, and I was glad that we could, but at the end of the conversation, it really didn't change anything with her faith, which, again, I understand. Where is she going to go? You know, even if she woke up tomorrow morning and said, yeah, you know what, I've had enough. You know, all these changes, all this doctrine that they keep changing, all this information that they keep giving us, I've had enough. I'm done being a witness. Well, where's she going to go? My mom is in her 70s. All of her friends are witnesses. All the people she associates with are witnesses. Everything she does, I mean, obviously right now they're not doing a lot socially, but when she can, everything she does socially is with witnesses. She's been a pioneer for decades. You know, what is she going to turn around? Is she going to go to church? No. I already know my mom. She's not going to go to church. She would just do nothing before she did that. So what would she do? So I believe that, like a lot of others, my mom knows there's something inside of her instincts telling her this is at least partially false. But I don't care. Keep me plugged in, because this is what makes the most sense in my life, and this is what is easiest for me to operate. And she's probably right. Unfortunately, she's probably right, because when someone steps out of the organization, as a lot of people know, you lose your entire community. And so at 70-something years old, how are you going to build a new community? You're not going to be on YouTube searching out videos and trying to find like-minded people. She would probably sit there miserable, laying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, thinking about the time she's wasted, or thinking about where she's going to go now. She'd probably be brokenhearted if she honestly came to that final conclusion that it's fake. But I'm glad we had the conversation about it. I'm glad that we could speak honestly about my key issues. She still at the end of it said, well, you should still come back to the hall. But I'm glad that she could come to the common ground that I've been talking to her about whenever she brings up the topics and understands. And like I told her, she raised me to be aware of my surroundings, to be street smart. And you can only hustle me so many times before I say, you're not going to hustle me no more. And so I flipped it right back on her. I said, well, Mom, you're street smart too. And how many times is somebody going to hustle you before you say, you know what, I know I'm being hustled. Stop it. And basically it's a hustle. Just telling these people lies. And preying on people whose faith will allow them to accept whatever they're told blindly. So I asked her, how many times are you going to allow yourself to be hustled before you say, nah, you're done hustling me? So that was near the end of the conversation. And she kind of said, I think imperfect people are making mistakes. I don't think they're purposely hustling me or anything like that. But I said, well, let's talk about things, maybe in another week or so. I asked her if I could send her some links and email to some videos. She said, oh no, I'm not watching none of that. So, because I think when emotions are involved when her and I talk, but I think if she could, watch some other videos, like maybe by XJW Critical Thinker, JT and Lady C, people like that I think do a much better job of, coming to witnesses, current and former witnesses, at that educational level than I ever could. I watched their videos. There's some others too, but I think that's like, for me, that channel is like foundation for whoever's coming out of the organization. They should probably go to that channel first and gain some knowledge, gain some perspective, hear some good stories about things. But I wanted to send her some links and videos. So right now she's not ready to do that, but if she ever is, I'll definitely send those. But I just wanted to kind of share my conversation in case anyone out there has some family members that they feel like they'll never get through to, and they feel like they've got that wall up. I mean, my mother and I have had basic conversations like this for 20 years, maybe 15, maybe 20. And this is the first time we got through that wall. We kind of broke through that wall, and I got her to acknowledge some things. Like I said, didn't change anything at the end, but you never know where seeds are laid. But at the same time, I don't know that I want her to wake up. You know what? What's she gonna do? Where's she gonna go? So just wanted to share that. If someone can relate, leave a comment. I'm sure people have family members that are in just like I do. I got a lot of people that I know and that I'm related to that are still in the organization. I am fortunate enough to have a large network of people not in, so it doesn't really affect me like it does some others, because I mean I've got a community. But just keep the faith. If you got somebody in there that you don't think you'll ever get through to, or that you don't think you could ever have those conversations with, one day you might be able to. So leave comments if anyone ever wants to talk. Call me, email, whatever. I'm always open to that. Y'all have a good day.